Hi, everyone. This is Agent in Training, Gloria Kovak. The following special episode is a behind-the-scenes look at Mission Rejected. There are multiple top-secret spoilers ahead for all 12 first-season episodes, so if you haven't heard them all yet, you might want to catch up first. If you're listening for the first time, start with Episode 1, Duck and Cover. Oh, I was so young then. Anyway, thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed us this year, don't forget to rate us on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, the old rabbit ears you have taped to your chimney, or wherever else you listen. This is Gloria Kovak, signing off.
Good evening, Agent Kerschner. It has come to our attention that a so-called writers' collective named the Porch Room have been claiming responsibility for the covert work done by the Extraordinary Missions Force. They appear to possess detailed information about otherwise top-secret projects and disturbing amounts of insight into our agents' personal lives and psyches. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to gather as much information about this Porch Room and the shadowy figures behind it. It goes without saying that these men should be considered highly suspect. Good luck. Mission Rejected, the story of the world's most unlikely podcasters, The Porch Room. Tonight's episode, EMF Declassified.
All right, well, hello, Mission Rejected listeners. This is Michael DeAngelis, and I'm so pleased to be joined today by my co-host from another podcast.
Indeed, another podcast.
Mylène Kerschner.
I'm so happy to be here as a big fan myself.
And eagle-eared listeners may know Mylène from episodes 2 and 11 as the angriest woman.
Lil Stank?
It's Lilith Frank.
Whatevs.
Not just any angry woman, but the angriest, in fact.
By her request. Here's our first behind-the-scenes tidbit. Originally, in episode 2, the script just called for Angry Woman 1, 2, and 3. And Mylène said, no, I am the angriest woman. And so that is how she is billed.
Not competitive at all. All right, well, let's jump into it. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves? Tell us a little bit about the Porch Room, how it came about, and maybe what else you've done.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Pete Barry. I'm one of the founding members of the Porch Room, along with John and Mike. I am the sound designer on Mission Rejected. I'm a playwright. I'm a screenwriter. I am occasionally Christatos O'Brien, one of the villains of the show.
I'm John Dowgin. I'm also a founding member of the Porch Room. It was way back then. It was us, and also we had another founding member, Adam Kaufman, who doesn't do too much with us anymore, but he still shows up from time to time. He's a big supporter of ours. We started the way any writers do with plays, because you can do those on your own with no equipment and relatively little permission.
We wrote plays. We were all actors. We were writers. So we just put up our own stuff where we could. Mike was at school. He was a freshman the year we had graduated. So I met him through summer theater.
So I'm Michael DeAngelis, though these guys call me Mike. They're amongst the very few.
Are we really?
And that's how close we are.
How you're going to keep it. Oh, yeah, he's Michael here for sure.
He's D to his high school friends.
I met these guys. We all went to Muhlenberg, but I was just after them. But we met doing summer theater, and we got along like a house on fire right away. We were definitely sharing our own writing with each other. I don't think we had tried to write a movie together.
So we had been doing stage play stuff. Separately, we had been writing screenplays, mostly on our own. So we went to the Austin Film Festival one summer because I got a script that made it through to the finals. And that summer, Pete had also actually sold a script to Sony out in Hollywood. And Mike came with us as the triumvirate. But the thing about Austin Film Festival is it's way more than film. They pride themselves on being a festival for writers in general, not just screenwriters. So they have a screenwriting track, they have a TV writing track, they have a playwriting track now. And also, I think it was the first year they did it, they had a fiction podcasting track. And that's where we began to think about this sort of thing. And then the next year we went back, 2018, we just went because we had fun. None of us had anything in the competition. We were able to focus more on the panels and the learning side of it.
So we went to several podcasting panels that season. I would say it was probably Sarah Werner's panel. Sarah, as many of our listeners know, writes and stars in Girl in Space, and has an incredible warmth and positivity about her, both on the podcast and in real life. So we heard her. We heard Lauren Shippen. We heard Paul Bay. We heard Gabrielle Urbana. We heard a lot of people. And it just seemed like with each one, I was getting that feeling like I got when we started doing Porchroom plays. I was like, we can do this. It'll be fun to do this together, and it'll be easy. We started doing one-act plays because it was easier than trying to make your own movie. Doing a podcast is even easier than trying to put up a play.
It's the easiest thing you can possibly do.
But I don't think any of us really knew until we went out to Austin and sat in on those panels how many audio dramas were being produced in the podcasting world. And once I knew that, and I knew people were doing it, I wanted nothing more than to be a part of it.
Yeah. So then from there, how did Mission Rejected specifically come to be? Like, talk about that process a bit.
Well, we were walking from the place we were staying back to the festival the Friday morning of that festival. And we knew we wanted to do something, but we had no idea what. So we was walking and bouncing ideas, and nothing's going anywhere. And I'm trying to think of some sort of hook, some sort of structure, some sort of story where you could have a consistent structure from episode to episode. And what were the shows that I used to love when I was a kid? Because the easiest thing to do when you're trying to come up with something like that is to mimic something the world is already familiar with. And I remembered being a kid on a rainy day, or if I had nothing to do, I was a huge Mission Impossible fan. If it was a rainy day and I didn't have anything to do, I used to amuse myself by making fake mission tapes on a little tape recorder that I would have. And that was it. That would never do anything. Nobody would ever hear them but me. But they amused the hell out of me. And I related this fact to the other gentlemen. They were quiet for a moment.
And then I think I said, well, that's the show. I just pictured little John in his room coming up with these ridiculous missions.
You're not that far off.
I was like, that's the show. And it's Mission Rejected. We all kind of laughed, but I think by the end of the day, we really were sold on that idea.
Now, I think I almost ruined it because I had come in, I think, a little more knowledgeable about certain podcasts than you guys had, because I've been listening to the Bright Sessions. Mm-hmm. And I thought one of the genius things about the Bright Sessions is how minimalist it is and how you can get away with that.
Oh, wow.
The Bright Sessions, if you don't know, is basically it's a great audio drama about a psychiatrist a therapist basically, who treats people with superpowers. And the whole thing is just them in the doctor's room and the tapes of the doctor interviewing them. So you can get away with very minimalist sound design, but it's still done brilliantly. And as that could be a very tedious thing, but Lauren Shippen writes it really well. Those characters are really well acted, so you are fascinated by these people. And so I said to them, this could be very simple. It could be just they come in to do the briefing where they learn what the mission is and they set up the plan that it's supposed to be, and then come back later after the mission is done, and you never have to show the mission. You just come in, get the briefing, and then you come back and say, okay, here's how we screwed it up. And that lasted approximately one script.
Well, you did.
And thank God it did, because it's gotten so much more ambitious and crazy now. Like, I love doing the actual missions. Because I don't know how long that would have actually that joke would have lasted.
Joe does his thing, Bowden gives the worst speech of the general's career, and we all go home.
I think this is going to work out just fine. That could not have gone worse.
Oh, sure it could have. I could be dead.
I'm not seeing how that's worse.
And I remember saying to Pete early on, I was like, I know we said it would be the brief and the debrief, but I feel like I gotta at least set this mission in motion, and then we'll kind of cut away. And then I cheated because I cut back to the briefing room And then I had Section Chief Anders play a videotape of the mission.
Not one word until you explain this.
We go now to the Little San Otra Parte neighborhood of Toledo, Ohio.
So Pete was like, okay. But I think we all found that naturally it was just better to incorporate the missions and more fun, because that's where the meat of the show is.
And I said to you, I was like, it's the pilot. Yeah, you set it up. That's fine. And then I think John came in with that was the Orlando one, right?
The first one I wrote was Orlando, yes.
Right. And I'm like, oh man, there's like robot video projectors in this thing.
There were.
Like a fight on a plane.
It's easy to do robot video projectors on a podcast. You just say, hey, robot video projector.
That's right.
A completely immersive audio experience with the click of a button.
Holy crap!
I can drop us in a cattle stampede.
Yeehaw!
Oh God, not more cows!
Or atop Everest. Or in the middle of the Metropolitan Opera.
And again, it's funny, if you listen to those early episodes, I'm thinking number 1, number 3, number 5, there is that element of, like, for some reason, like, 5 goes, they brief, and then the very next scene is Skip and Zelda talking about what went wrong, and then you flashback.
Yes.
And it works. But it's kind of like, why is that the way it is instead of just doing the mission? It's because we were still in this mentality of, okay, do the brief, then do the debrief.
It works as a nice frame, though, and it doesn't feel formulaic because you do vary how each episode has that kind of template, but it doesn't come about in the same way. So it's still, you have a frame of reference, but each one is still super creative in how you're introduced to the mission, which is fantastic.
Like I do think for some reason for 5, it really works just immediately before you know anything about how the mission went. Just hearing in Anders' voice, what a catastrophe it must have been.
The Orlando part, it hadn't been rejected, so the mission...
Would you call it a mission or a fiasco that I hesitate to call a dumpster fire because I do not wish to besmirch dumpsters or fires?
It still happens that from time to time. I mean, I think there's one that I just wrote. I'm not sure if it's going to stay this way in the second season. That's like, you've got that moment of, okay, this is going to work great. Transition music. Well, that completely sucks. So, like, I mean, that is a classic joke, and sometimes it works.
Yeah, and this change from the, a possible concept of something really stripped down like the Bright Sessions. Pete, since you write the music as well as craft the sound effects.
Yes, I do.
Seems like a lot of work. So what is post-production like for you?
It is a lot of work. So, like that theme, I was like, well, what's Mission Impossible? Like the thing that people know is the 5. It's in 5. Dun, 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 right? Like that's like, it's so iconic, that music. So the first thing I did was I was like, well, all right, I'll just invert it. I'll go to 7. I'll do a song that's in an off meter. And so it is. It's, the song is in 7, so it's got that kind of off action feel. I wanted a kind of a 70s-ish. The trumpet at the end, it's going, like I want it to be like those old game shows, right? It's like, yeah! That you're like, hey, this is so jazzy and whatever. And the marimba, I wanted to evoke those old spy, like cheesy spy shows. That's like, this is really like hamming it up in the music. So in the end, I'm glad I went from the original. That made me go from the original X-Files to the new one. Now that was the original, like, okay, and then you've got the main theme song. I can just recycle that every single time. But then John writes the Orlando episode, and he's like, and we're just going to play Baby Shark. And I'm like, well, you're not going to do that.
I asked first if it was public domain.
You did.
And at the time, we thought, and when I wrote it, I thought it, well, remember when I wrote it, we thought it was.
No, we did not.
I thought we said, somebody who told me it was. All I know is it's like a couple weeks before we're ready to tape it, and all of a sudden this massive lawsuit hits Pink Fong.
So I wrote 2 songs. The first one, so I'm like, okay, we need to make it inane like Baby Shark. So a parody, we have the right to parody. Mm-hmm. We are a parody, basically. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, okay, so it's got to be something close. And I had this song. The original song actually was called Killer Whale, which
right.
I actually thought was funnier, but John was right. He's like, that's not a kid's song. It was like the joke was killer whale. It was just the same thing. Killer whale is going around, like whatever. And then it's like victim whale. So the killer whale has killed somebody. So it's victim whale and the detective whale. So there was a whole, it was more amusing, but clearly not that. It wasn't just inane children's music. So then that's when Baby Whale came around and like just cranking out that Baby Whale song, just like, all right, that was the first one. I was like, I can't just rely on what we have already.
And people really liked the song. Somebody wrote the account and was like, I think you've got a hit because my kid keeps asking me to play it.
Play Baby Whale? Oh, man. Get your kids to listen to better music than Baby Whale. Mommy Whale.
What about casting? How did you decide upon who was going to be your leads? How did that look?
Who did we cast first? Was it Nasla?
Well, so there were people we knew. So I would say the person that was cast first was Faith.
Yeah, that's probably true.
You caused a woman to have a mental breakdown, Skip. Mm-hmm. You're pretty close to making me have a mental breakdown.
Mm-hmm. So we did come up with the idea that the leader of the team would be this super peppy optimist. We actually thought the model for that would be Leslie Knope from Parks and Recreation. Sure. Mm-hmm. So we thought that could be a woman, it could be a man. We weren't sure. When we said that, I was like, oh, I might have a guy for this because I had just directed a production of As You Like It, and Chris, who plays Skip, had played Orlando in that, who is like the completely dopey, super enthusiastic character. And I was like, I bet Chris could play Skip.
Get ready for a character study. We're going to infiltrate a cadre of cattle barons.
Enough with the code phrases, Skip.
That wasn't a code phrase.
So we had some ideas. Nasla is someone that we've worked with a bunch. She was the star of the Antony and Cleopatra show when we did it in New York. I knew that I wanted her to be involved, but I think we weren't sure which part she would play.
Forgive me. Dr. McGrath.
God, you're too easy. I barely finished college. I was so bored. Just call me McGrath. We're cool, Skip.
Actually, I prefer Agent...
So what's the plan, Skip?
We had a friend in mind for Bowden. Okay. And he's out in LA, and like we were having trouble connecting with him, and it was getting very close to record. And I think it was Pete who just one day said, "What about Dave Stanger?" And there was just like this silence, and we all went, "Oh, why wasn't that from the beginning?"
You know, I heard from my agent that they're interested in me for the 12th Angry Man at the Don Rickles Dinner Arena.
In Tampa?
The same. And you know, the 12th man is the angriest of the bunch.
Oh.
Of course, Dave Stanger.
He went to school with, but I don't think he was there when I was.
No, he wasn't.
He
was there than me. Yeah,
I saw Dave in a show that Mike directed in at Muhlenberg, and he was unbelievably hilarious.
So I knew I wanted Nasla to do it. I knew I wanted Paige to do it.
How did you hear us from across the room?
Oh, I aced the agency's distance lip reading training. Don't worry about talk of Bowden upsetting me. His absence has given me time to work on myself. And now I am completely over.
Morning, all.
Bowden!
So they both read really well for both Gloria and Mackenzie. And we just, in the end, we felt like... we
had a little bit of trouble deciding.
Oh, I would say that was the hardest casting decision we made.
Well, like, these are the two.
Yeah.
So which way is it going to be?
And it definitely could have gone either way. They both did really good auditions for both of those parts.
Absolutely, Mr. Moncrief.
Gloria, come now. We're practically old friends.
They have me pouring coffee in here, but that's no reason to let my skills slide.
How do you keep yourself sharp?
Do you see the tiny dots on the coffee cups?
I do.
It's a ternary code I invented.
No.
This one's Earl Grey with half and half.
My favorite.
I know. I profiled you.
When you picked me up, I was Khloe Kardashian. Or one of them, anyway. Get me one good selfie of anyone, and this puppy can download their entire browsing history, including finances, and 3D print a perfect latex mask of their face, undetectable to even those closest to them. Just ask Kanye. Or was it Lamar?
Bob Killian, I had worked with twice, and I knew he was great at voices. So I was just like, Bob's going to be like our Hank Azaria, our Harry Shearer. He's going to play all these other parts.
Yeah.
El Pato looking a little uncomfortable here, Connie.
Jimmy Serafilio, comic book artist extraordinaire.
That's a hacker handle? You sound like a rejected Jetsons character.
What in tarnation are you doing in that box?
Fake news! I am no question New Yorker. Go Starbucks!
So for the pilot, I was just going to have him be the newscaster and the security guard. And again, we wanted the same friend out in LA to be the admiral, and we were having trouble getting in touch with him.
That guy's cursing his luck right now.
Like the day before the recording, I messaged Bob and was like, could you also just look at the admiral and, here's what I'm going for. Bob came to the first recording and he was like, look, can I just do these admiral lines real quick? Because I don't think I've got it right. I was like, great.
Afternoon!
Don't fall there, sweetie.
Nothing like a little exuberant exercise. Just stiffen the muscles and sharpen the mind, eh, Mr. Doe?
Are you climbing, Admiral, or are you just dangling?
I seem to have confused my carabiner with my crampon. Help me out, would you, Trixie?
He read them and I was dying. The Admiral was not supposed to be in every episode. No. And the minute that voice came out of Bob, I was like, we're going to be fools not to have.
It's not the only thing that Bob hasn't sort of grown a character that we didn't expect. The other hilarious thing, I wasn't there for the first recording, but there was a security guard in El Pato's, entourage.
Right.
And he had just like 3 lines. And I think you said it was Jill or somebody, like after Bob recorded his lines as the security guy. So I was like, can we all just take a moment to reflect on how dead inside the security guard is? And I had written another security guard into something else. I was like, well, maybe it's just the same guy. So then the recurring security guard character was born, and he's the security guard for every single one of the villains in the season.
That's awesome.
So, and the same thing with Ashley, had the couple of lines as Ocean Girl, a character that I couldn't even bother to come up with a name. And her voice was so funny and she was so sweet.
Know how it is?
I don't know. The ocean is my office. The open water is my cubicle. The currents are my middle managers. And every swimming soul from the blue whale to the narwhal is my co-worker.
But our cast, they're so great. I love working with them, and we've had amazing guest stars. A lot of John's actors from Jersey have stepped in. Mm-hmm. I have had the amazing luck of roping my coworkers into this. Mylène has been twice as the angriest woman. Natty Leach, our other coworker, is Lieutenant Valerian. Leon Malloy, our operations manager, was Mr. Herman Klemper in number 5. Claire Klieger was Damro in the latest episode. I've got people lined up for season 12. I feel like if I don't have all 27 members of our office on this podcast by the end, I'm going to be in hot water.
I mean, we are so lucky to have the generosity of these people who are so incredibly talented and are just, they're just volunteering their time to do this for us. This show would not be what it is without those people, the chemistry they have, and the things they do. Sometimes I'm like, I don't know if this joke is going to go over. And then whoever it is reads it. I'm like, yep, nailed it. I'm like, I don't even have to worry that I try not to phone in jokes, but I know that I'm like, okay, Dave is going to say this and it's going to be hilarious.
I trust it. Yeah.
Yeah. They're so generous with their time and their ideas. Everyone has contributed an improv or just a different take. They're very dedicated to getting it right. If I need a retake, like a couple of weeks after we do it, every single person's like, I'll come over, just name the time.
If you don't need a retake in the session, then Chris Klaniecki will absolutely give it to you.
He does.
That guy is a perfectionist.
Chris will do a whole episode, and then Chris will be like, can I just go back? I got some couple ideas. And it's amazing to have that.
It's fantastic.
It's been announced on the social media, so I can say it here. But Paige, who plays Gloria, is going to join the writing staff in season 2. And
right.
she has already written a really funny draft for her first episode, and we're super excited to have her voice included in the second season as a writer. We're so thrilled.
Awesome. Now, I want to talk briefly about merch, the very important part of this whole process.
Merchandising.
How fun was it designing products related to Mission Rejected? Do you have any favorites? And will I get a new sticker for season 2 adventure?
I'm looking at my laptop cover sticker right now. I think that's still my favorite.
Sort of between Pete and I, we came up with the EMF logo.
Mm-hmm.
It is super fun to put it on a notebook or stickers, or now we have magnets and pins.
Your coffee mug, don't forget.
I walk around this office with my coffee mug permanently attached to my hand. It's great. I'll just be the guy that makes the plea. You know, every little bit of merch that we sell helps. We get just a couple of bucks off each thing, but that money goes back into the show. And what we would really love to do is to be able to pay our actors who give so much of themselves to the show. So any little bit that you can give. We've got great stickers, great T-shirts,
great mugs.
Obviously, we had a bunch of Ocean Bureau merchandise for season 1, but that ship has sunk. So we'll have to see.
Well, I was going to say, the funny thing is, like, the Become One with the Ocean, like, that was a throwaway joke that I wrote for episode 3, that I was just like, I need the Admiral to be here being an idiot. And so he did that Become One with the Ocean thing. And then Mike started writing it into everything and put it on the logo. I was like, oh, is this the Ocean Bureau logo now? All right, I guess that's what it is. And it's really funny that I've got my coffee mug with the Ocean Bureau, Become One with the Ocean.
Any teasers for season 2?
Well, what should we
What can you reveal?
give away? Do we even know what's happening in season 2? Is
a great question. Well, I can guarantee that in the first episode of season 2, you will find out who has lived and who has died.
Perfect. Right.
I think I can also guarantee more mayhem. I mean, just the missions that we have planned just for the first half of the second season are among the most ridiculous.
We can promise you will learn more about the familial backgrounds of some of our heroes.
Wonderful. I've been lacking.
And in episode 3, I can guarantee you at least 10 pig jokes.
Wow, that's tantalizing.
I can say that as much as I resisted being dragged into the upping the production values from just brief debrief into full-scale action movie, there will be a lot more action sequences in the
Oh yeah,
so
I mean, again, this goes back to, well, we started with 1-act plays with 2 people, and then we got up to an Egyptian spectacle with 20 people. We started with, it'll all take place in a meeting room. And then this year ended with a cruise ship blowing up, and the second season starts with here you go. Here's a tease. The second season starts with the U.S. Navy coming into the scene. So, and we made the conscious decision to do big action sequences in every episode. So we're not making things easier on ourselves, and definitely not making things easier on Pete.
Yeah, Pete, I know I told you not to read 203 yet because it's not really ready, but did you happen to peek at the first page?
I obeyed your orders. So
okay. Good.
Listen, we're not giving them any spoilers.
I might change it.
And I'm not even getting any spoilers.
I might change some of the beginning of that, but if I don't, I apologize in advance.
All right. I mean, I'm ready for it, man. Like I think the ship exploding was rough, but forget that the one before that, and even the one before that, the last 3 episodes were the Halloween episode where Mike and I worked really hard to make an infinitely tentacled space being.
Yeah,
came out great.
Then the next episode was a drag race through the streets,
right?
And then the ship explodes. So it's like, all right, well, we totally abandoned that 2-room idea a long time ago.
Have you secured the mixing and recording skills of Karen Yang for season 2? Is that locked in?
Well, I'll leave that to Mike.
So Karen Yang produces CS Radio for Mylène and I. And she not only has assisted Pete with and I with the recording of season 1, she of course also appears as Dr. Carol Lagrange in several episodes. So we will have Karen back for season 2, but only half of it because of course she's graduating.
Exactly.
She's a college student. She's graduating in May and moving off to New York. But I'm going to get her. I guess we'll get her through episode 5.
Keep her roped in.
And
great.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
I've just made a request that Lagrange be featured in episode 4, so she gets a big send off.
Excellent.
And I'm hoping, if I send Karen a couple of lines here and there, she can send them in from New York.
Sure, if anyone could.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Kirk White, who plays Chet Phillips, has never met any of the
I've
others.
never met. I haven't.
A comic book convention in Jersey. I'm Chet Phillips. I'm a buff Jason Bourne movie Matt Damon, not a chunky Kevin Smith movie Matt Damon. Worst mission ever.
I should have mentioned this earlier, but it's worth mentioning here. Talking about casting is, of course, Kevin McGrath as the mission voice.
Oh, right.
That was entirely Pete's idea. Kevin McGrath is one of my best friends I've known him since I was 10. He is not an actor. He is a very successful programmer and a physicist. And he and Pete have a very great rapport. And I know Pete's a big fan of his. And when we were thinking about who would be the voice on the tape, Pete just went, "It's Kevin McGrath."
Good morning, Chet. General Jose Barreda, a.k.a. El Pato, a.k.a. The Duck, is the military leader of the South American nation of San Ontra Parte. He is landing on U.S. soil in 2 days, where he plans on giving a speech to drum up support for his sham presidency among Americans. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to replace the general with one of your extraordinary mission agents and sabotage his speech, which is to be given at a Motel 6 in Toledo, Ohio.
Toledo?
And I'm so happy that, like, in later episodes, we're like, all right, let's see what the mission voice is. Like, let's put him in there. And as an actual human being in Halloween, he turns into Ryan Murphy for some reason in the middle of a hallucination. And like,
one of the things that has been like a very unexpected joy, it's extra work. So if you support us on Patreon at the $5 level, you're getting a couple of things every month. One is a PDF dossier of the mission, and whoever wrote the episode writes the dossier. And there's some really funny additional information in those dossiers, including some really funny pictures of our guest villains that most people don't get to see. But the other thing is every episode, there's a bonus audio as well. So for episode, I think it was 8, was this monologue from the mission voice where he couldn't get through the take and he starts losing it. But we did there are some really, really, really funny bonus audios. And I know Pete and I have both been like, we wish more people heard these, but they're exclusive to our Patreon. And, it's tough. I think at some point, maybe in the second season, we'll release the first season one so people can.
Right.
We don't want to withhold content, but it is a nice bonus for our supporters. But my, at the time, 9-year-old nephew wrote an episode of Mission Rejected, and we recorded it as a bonus episode. And it's hysterically funny.
That is amazing. Any other unexpected joys maybe to go out on, Pete and John?
It's gotten me back in the habit of finishing drafts. I was on a bad multi-year run of starting projects and then letting them wither on the vine and leaving them unfinished. And you can't do that when there's 12 actors waiting for an actual PDF that they're actually going to gather together to read. It's reminded me, it's gotten me back on the stick in more ways than one with all sorts of writing projects.
Audio drama community is amazing, whether it's on Twitter or Reddit or Discord. I've made like real online friendships with some of our fans and other creators. I loved going back to Austin in 2019 now as a podcast creator and meeting some people whose shows we liked, and having Sarah Werner say, "Oh my God, you guys are Mission Rejected. I
That's
love you
awesome.
guys." Oh my God, cloud nine.
Yeah.
And on the heels of that, Mike, like not just seeing people who had podcasts, but people showing up to Austin who were where we were at the beginning, who did not have a podcast, came in, said, "Hey, this is interesting. I don't know if I can do this," and just being able to say, "You can do this."
I just kept saying, less thinking, more doing.
Yeah, totally.
Let's not, if we got, I think it was Pete who really kept saying, if we get too precious about it, we'll kill it. So let's just go and we'll learn as we go.
Yep.
And that's exactly what happened. And they got better and better. But man, we produced 12 episodes of a show. It was really like running a real show. And we're already like, the show's on hiatus, but we basically have not taken a break. We're deep into writing season 2. We went to Austin and we planned out season 2 and we started writing season 2. And, in 2 weekends from now, we're recording the first episode. And so it's like a nonstop train, which is exhausting, but it's great. And I love having everyone in my apartment once a month. It's strengthened the friendships that I had with these people. I love that it's gotten so many people from so many aspects of my life involved, my coworkers, my high school friends, my college friends, my actor friends, my Austin friends. I mean, I'm a connector, and that makes me really happy.
Well, I can't wait to hear who lives, who dies,
who tells your story,
who comes back next season.
Good thing the angriest woman wasn't on the cruise ship.
Oh, right.
She lives to be angry another day.
Well, thank you guys so much. This has been so interesting for me. And like I said, I'm really looking forward to hearing what's next.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Mylène.
Mission Rejected was created by Pete Barry, J. Michael DeAngelis, and John Dowgin. Music, sound mixing, and editing was by Pete Barry. Special material written and directed by J. Michael DeAngelis. Your host was A. Mylène Kerschner, and it featured Kevin McGrath as the mission voice. Be sure to check out Mylène's podcast, CS Radio, a weekly discussion about career development on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoyed this behind-the-scenes episode, why not join us on Patreon for an extended peek behind the curtain? Patreon supporters received an extended version of this episode, as well as an ongoing look at the development of Season 2, all for as little as $1 a month. Visit www.patreon.com/missionrejected for details. This has been a Portrait production, copyright 2020, Extraordinary Mission Limited.